So let us discuss the 10th September 2015 article over here. The first one is related to the National Citizen Register in Assam. Now, with regard to the Assam population, let us consider the three categories over here. So, the Bengali speaking population in Assam, they are original inhabitants of this land who Britishers, because of the changing of the geography of the Bengal province from time to time, these people are actually Bengali speaking but got settled in Assam. And the next one is, I call them as original inhabitants. And second category are, when India was divided, partition of India took place, the East Bengal became the East Pakistan. So some people, fearing the persecution, they have come back to India. And 1971 crisis, where there was huge violence against the East Pakistan, people of East Pakistan. Then there is a huge sludge of the migration to India. So afterwards, for the economic benefits, also huge amount of migration has happened in India. So what the Assamese feel is, the increasing Bengali speaking population, who are mostly considered as immigrants from Bangladesh, are disturbing the demography of the Assam. So in this context, Assam, All Assam Students Union, it raised an agitation against the Bengali speaking population over there. Now later it's transformed into Assam Gana Parishad. Now, during Rajiv Gandhi era in 1985, Assam Accord has come into existence between the government of India, government of Assam government, All Assam Students Union. So now, any person who has come after 1971, he can be deported back to the, he will not be considered as the citizen of India. So now in these circumstances, the author what argues is, so any person who is after March 25th, 1971, he shall not be the citizen of India according to Assam Accord. That is the carry home point. And what the author argues is this. Most of the Bengali speaking population from 1874 onwards, they are the regular inhabitants of the Assam. And the second thing is, for identification of these particular illegal immigrants into the Assam, the 1951 National Citizen Register forms the basis. And this register is incomplete, and also it is highly inadequate with wrongly filled names. It means a person has to prove his association to the soil based on his ancestors. So in this context, the inadequate and incomplete information is going to make many of these people countryless. And the second thing is, where these people shall go. It means, will Bangladesh accept them as its citizens? No, the Bangladesh will not. Then it means that once this register completes, all these people at a single go becomes the stateless citizens. You have seen Rohingyas conditions in Myanmar who are stateless, who are not recognized as the citizens of the country. Is Bengali speaking population in Assam, or they are going to face the similar situation in India? It was the question over here. The next one is the woman gender mainstreaming and its impact. So with regard to gender mainstreaming, it is not only a moral consideration, also it has got economic benefit. Already we have seen the W20 summit in Ankara. So what it says is, giving importance to women, it increased the growth of our GDP by 27% more, and 9% in Japan, 5% in the United States. And also the agricultural growth as for FAO, it can increase to 4% if women are given equal status. Now in this context, the author also argues that, so there is an economic sense for the gender equality. Now she quotes that, the Bangladesh, the labor participation rate of the women is increasing. So it is expected to raise its GDP by 1.8%. Growth rate by 1.8% because of this gender mainstreaming. Now, in the previous class, we saw education, employment. These are the two critical factors for gender mainstreaming. Now, an education at the secondary level increases the chances of opportunities by 10 to 20%, or income generation for the woman by 10 to 20%. So in some countries, though the education is high for women, labor participation rate is low. Example, Japan. What are the reasons? One is legal bottlenecks, lack of financial inclusion, or lack of access to the finances. Third is burden of child rearing. These are the three things Ms. Lagarde is talking about yesterday at W20. Now, again, another factor what this article highlights is this. There is, though there are protective laws in some countries regarding women, most of them are inadequately implemented. And many countries even do not have laws against domestic violence. So even the private sector, the women participation, it has decreased the number of corruption cases and scams. And the profits of these companies have increased. So there are many countries which even do not consist one woman member in the board of the directors. Recently, SEBI has ordered to make one woman in the board of the directors. So these are the things. And the next is this, the beautiful article which I like today. One thing is how to counter the hate speech. For this, the dangerous speech project, it was undertaken by Harvard University. Miss Hussain, she takes up this project at Harvard University, that is dangerous speech project. Now, ISIS and many other terrorist organizations, they are attracting the people through this hate speech. How to counter this? If you see, the online propaganda is very dangerous because of few reasons. For example, anything online, it spreads very fast. So it means the effect will be seen immediately. And second thing is, there is something called a disinhibitory effect. Because there is an anonymity in online postings. So a person, because of this anonymity, he gets this support or sense of security through which he can post anything without fear of law. And third thing is, a sense of groupism comes up in the online things. So you have a support of a group of people rallying behind you. So you get motivated to do something. So that's why online propaganda is very dangerous. Now, how the governments previously dealt with these situations? Now, before the internet has come up, so the hate speech is dealt with the arrest of the person and censorship. Now, the censorship cannot work. Arrest also cannot work because identifying the people is very much difficult. They will be somewhere across the borders. So these two instruments of the states, they become redundant now. If you see India's daughters, though state has banned it, it is unable to exercise its will on the people not watching the India's daughter. So in this context, what Hussain talks about is this. The hate speech can be better countered by or better controlled by a counter speech. So the counter speech, it's very effective. So she takes the example of Paznagar work in the Myanmar. Actually, Rohingyas, there's a huge hatred which was propagated in Myanmar against the Rohingyas. Then certain good-spirited individuals, Buddhist monks, they started talking about positive related to Rohingyas. So what Hussain says is this: how fast the negative thing spreads on the internet, so fast we can also counter that into a positive speech. It means that the hate speech can be countered with an equally balanced counter speech. So here in the Myanmar it is called flowering language. So this counter speech is one thing where we have to develop the strategy. And the next one is, there is a huge refugee crisis going on from Middle East towards the European countries crossing the Mediterranean. Now in this case, the European countries are using the word migrants rather than refugees. The author argues that the use of these words that makes a huge meaning or huge difference. A migrant is one who crosses the border in search of a better life. better standard for his life. A refugee is one. 1951 Refugee Convention of United Nations High Commission on Refugees. What it says is this: any person who is facing a retribution in their country because of his ethnicity or political outlook, etc., and if he stays in this country, if his life is threatened, then he can travel or he can go to the other country. Now, later the definition was expanded to include the people from internal conflicts, armed conflicts or internal wars, and also systemic violation of the human rights. They also come under the definition of refugees. Simply said, any person who is facing a retribution in this country and who is a victim of conflict or a strife in the country, a victim of human rights violation in the country, he comes under the definition of refugees. Now, a refugee has protection under the international law. One, he can't be deported, and next is he has to be provided with fair and efficient asylum procedures. It means he has to be given with necessary conditions for living in the host country, and certain administrative procedures and assistance has to be provided to him. So these are the protections to the refugees. Now the migrants, on the other hand, they can be dealt by the country's domestic law. So he can be deported and he do not enjoy any rights under the international convention. And second is, if you see the perception of the people, with regard to the refugees, the perception will be generally positive and welcoming. And with regard to the migrants, so the people see them as occupying their particular share of the pie, or taking away their economic benefits. That's how they see them. So in these circumstances, so the better word for this particular crisis is to use the refugees. And next is, there are two gold schemes here. One is gold monetization scheme, and next is gold bond. These are the two schemes which are being brought in by the government. What is the gold monetization scheme? It is better explained in the next diagram. For example, in India, household has huge unused gold. So, if you can bring this gold into the system, we can decrease the import of the system. And gold bond, other people, they buy the gold for one reason. It is a source of investment for the people. It is a major source of investment. Gold is an investment for the people. So, to decrease to bring back the household or institutional gold into the system, that is what we call it as gold monetization scheme. To avoid people buying the gold as an investment, what we had is called the gold bond. Under the gold monetization scheme, for example, if I have some 30 to 40 grams of gold, I can take it to the bank. So in the bank, what I do, there is a purity testing guy. He will test my gold and he will say how much can be the percentage of the gold in this. And then it goes for a melting. After melting, the pure gold is removed and it is weighed for. And it will be converted into a bar. Then he will go with the certificate given to the banker and he will deposit his gold over there. A certificate is given for this particular purpose. Now, for example, out of my 30 grams of bangles, I might be getting 20 grams of real gold. So now, this gold I can deposit in the bank and can get a certificate. So, there will be a 2% interest per annum is given on this 20 grams gold. It means after 1 year, I am going to get 22 grams of the gold. After 1 year, I am going to have 22 grams of the gold over here. So this is what is gold monetization scheme. It means after 1 year, I can take 22 grams of the gold or equivalent money in rupees. So I can redeem them in either in money or in gold. Now if you take the gold bond, so what will happen is, if I can go to the bank, I can buy 5 grams, 10 grams or 20 grams gold bond to a maximum of 500 grams. So then what I do with this, tomorrow, for example, 5 years I bought this gold bond. So government says some 5 to 6% of the interest rate. After 5 years, when I want to redeem the gold, on that day, what is the price of the gold? On that day, the price of the gold is multiplied. The price of the gold is multiplied and it will be redeemed along with the interest. The interest rate will be calculated on the price of the gold when the gold bond is brought. But however, it will be redeemed on the other price. This is what happens with regard to the gold bond scheme. Thank you very much.